Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Thomas Scheiber, Vice President, Data Center Networking Product Management, Cisco.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm like blinded by the sun of Melbourne, so it's my pleasure actually. Thanks for joining. What we're going to do in the next 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, is talk a little about what some of the innovations we have in the data center space, what we started talking about, quite frankly, 4 weeks ago. And so we're going to start off to give you a little bit of an overarching view on why we do some of these innovations, how they fit together. I would go into the intent-based networking for the data center, which is really the data center networking piece. And then I will hand it over to my partner in crime, Katie, who will talk about compute hyperconversion. And we actually have the pleasure to have one of our customers from Australia, which is AU Cloud, here with us on stage, and give you a little bit of a feedback on what they actually do with this innovation. So with that, let me jump in. With the overarching theme is why are we doing these things on networking and compute in the data center, and what drives us some of this. You're probably not surprised, I hope, that for us, the center of what drives all these innovations is what happens with the applications. Right, in the end, what we do in infrastructure is driven by what you want to do with the applications. Right, what we're clearly seeing is there is a whole way of refactoring modernization of application going on, not just what you run on-prem, but where you run it, how you run it, and that's literally the foundation of what's going on. This is what drives the transformation for most of our customers, including you, I assume. Application is what makes money for all of us. And what we see happening, right, and this is the way how the applications seem to be being built going forward, is really around way more distributed, way more based on microservices, taking advantage of some of these different locations where they're being deployed. And so that's kind of the stage when we talk about data center transformation, why we're focusing on this. So what's happening is, as a result, as you might imagine, the data center used to be a center in one spot, or maybe two. That is more and more not true anymore. It is no longer a fixed place. It's really more a definition going forward. The data center is where what we call the data is. And if the data is highly distributed, so it's going to be the data center infrastructure that has to support this. And as a result, really, the way we look at this, a data center going forward, everything that's we built around it cannot be based on an assumption it is in one box, in one spot. It has to be covering how you want to deploy the application, where you want to have the apps, where you have the data, which is basically everywhere. And so this tagline we have is this is really the data center needs to go where the data is and where the processing happens. And this just gives you a little bit of idea. It's like really it's more of a mesh than a hub and spoke where everything comes together. Right? Look at the enterprise data center where most of you probably started at some point, 1, 2, multiples, depending on the size of the company. And you're saying, oh, maybe I should put some in a colo, Equinix. I don't get advertisement money for this. Some of in public clouds, Azure, AWS. Some of edge locations. But that's basically the scope of a definition of where the data is and what the data center has to cover. And so that's really, if you look at what we're doing, the products we're building, the innovations I'm talking about, and KD will talk about, is how do we make it easy for you to deploy data centers in this kind of environment? And when I say easy, because the first reaction everybody has, whoa, this looks like very complex. What about security? What about performance? And so the innovations we're bringing out with the data center anywhere is really, on the networking side, what we call ACI anywhere. How do I build the network infrastructure to support that kind of distributed data center environment? And on the hyperconverged side, we call it HX anywhere. Same idea. How do I have a solid infrastructure around hyperconverged that can go wherever the data is? And so this is the theme. The data center has to be where the data is. That means anywhere. The last piece on this overview, before I dive a little bit more into the innovations on the networking side, is besides all architecture and how to actually make this work, one of the feedbacks that we got very clearly from a lot of our customers, and probably some of you in the room, is please, Cisco, make it easier to buy and consume the software products and solutions that you have in the data center. And what you see here is an offering that we're rolling out worldwide. It's called Data Center Enrollment for the Cisco Enterprise Agreement, which is basically an ELA kind of thing around software offerings, subscription offerings. And you see it there, you see a list of, I think it's 8 icons, which is the ACI software, Insight software, and you're going to hear more about this from Katie later. Hyperflex, you're going to hear more about it. Tetration as a service, Cloud Center, workload optimization, and I can go on and on. You see, by the way, all of these things, if you haven't seen them yet, go to the World of Solution, you will see all of them there. But what this basically is we're going to package them up so you can buy them consistently. You don't have to buy them all together. You can start with 2, use them. You can try all the other ones, and if you decide you really want to use them in production at the end of the year, then you can sign up and buy it for production. And then we do a true forward. We're not going to do penalize you for trying backwards. But the idea is make it much, much easier for you to use these products, have a consistent way of using them. So that's the Data Center Enterprise Agreement. So I hope that set a little bit of the stage around the innovations that we are driving both on the networking side and on the compute side. Again, all of this is just testament to the fact applications are deployed more distributed. The data center better supports this, and so we're here to do this. Let me now come into the first piece of this. What do we do on the networking side? I should probably ask, how many of you have heard this term, intent-based? Okay, thank you. The few people that didn't raise their hand, I'm just wondering, you either, anyway. We talked about intent-based for a while. We actually talked about it for 2 years. We actually, if you go back, when we started ACI 5 years ago, that was really the burst moment of intent for the data center. We didn't call it quite that, but that's really what it is. In the end, again, I said, application is what drives this. Intent-based networking is really the reflection on there ought to be a circle between this is what the application needs, this is what I'm going to do in the network to make it happen, and then I have to have a loop to figure out this is really what happened, what I wanted. And that's just, other way to express it is like there's some analytics, there's some monitoring, and I need to be able to observe, and I need to have a feedback loop and saying, okay, what my network does is really the intent I wanted, and if not, I need to course correct. And so this is really the simple way of describing intent-based networking. And if you look at the building blocks that we have on the networking side to make that happen, is really 3. There is Cisco ACI, automating of the network. There is the tetration piece that allows you to do some discovery as well as some of the enforcement. And then there is Cisco NEE, which is one of these customer-left 3-letter acronyms that stands for Network Assurance Engine, which is really this thing that monitors and says, what was my intent, what happened, am I in sync, am I not in sync, and then helps the feedback. These are the building blocks, and with those, you will get to an intent-based networking in a data center. So having said that, let me spend a little bit of time on going in, so what do we actually do? On the ACI side, you probably have seen this. Think about at ACI, network automation. Very, very capable in network automation. When we started this off, clearly, how do we do this in one data center? You see this in the middle. Second step, how do I do this across 2 data centers consistently? Middle. Look on the left side. And I hope I'm not getting confused because I'm driving now on the other side in this country. Look at the left side, remotely, virtual port. How do I do the same thing in a virtual environment? Whether this is on top of a host, on a bare metal, or whether this is a remote leaf, physical leaf that is tied in remotely to my data center fabric. Have to live at this. The last piece that we were missing and have now delivered, and that was actually the announcement that we did, I think, 4 weeks ago. How can I extend ACI policy into a public cloud? How can I use the same definition of how do I want to reach things, how do I connect things, how do I want to do whitelisting across all of these different domains, also in a public cloud? And so that's really the last piece missing there that was missing, we have delivered, was the multi-cloud extensions. First one is going to be AWS, Amazon. Second one is going to be Microsoft Azure. And then there will be additional ones based on your feedback. The real idea behind was, if the data is anywhere, I need to have a consistent policy model to allow you to have a single way of doing extension, same way of looking at security, same way of looking at analytics, Same policy. I don't have to relearn languages just because I want to deploy something in AWS, I want to deploy something in Azure. Should be consistent. That was the idea behind this. That was ACI, Anywhere Automation. Remember, second building block I mentioned was titration. Titration actually has a very interesting capability around workload protection. And that's probably not when you first heard about titration what we talked about. We expanded the capabilities, and it's actually a very, very powerful tool to help you around continuous risk assessment on application on the endpoint directly on the host. You can do behavior profiling, you can watch these applications over time, and then you can do enforcement if you want. You can either just say, hey, there's something wrong, you need to take actions, and just raise an alarm, or you can say, I want to stop any communication in and out of that host. You can have that whole capability. The nice thing about this is with titration, I put this on the bottom there in this blue box, it really helps you at every step at your path to a multi-cloud environments. You can use this without going, before you start this transition to multi-cloud, and just protect your application as is on-prem. You can use this during your migration when you say some of my workloads go into multi-cloud or in the cloud at some state. I can use titration to protect the whole parameter around these installments. And you clearly can do this across multiple clouds. Very, very powerful tool that helps you to address some of these concerns with multi-cloud. Oh, what happened to my security around my apps? During this whole process, titration workload protection will help you. And the last two things I want to touch on, this was assurance and insights. We have two sets of capabilities. Insights is going to be a new one. This will come out and ship in the next 3 months. And assurance is something that we had for the last 6 to 9 months. The way you want to think about it, it's the day 2 operation stacks for your network. Insights will give you health and availability information. It will work for ACI fabrics as well as for Nexus fabrics. And then assurance is closing this loop between this is my policy, my intent, this is really what happens, and gives you that consistent feedback loop and really allows you to go from a reaction, oh, this is not what I wanted, to, oh yeah, I see it's not what I wanted, let me actually do something about it before it's too late. That is available and works for ACI fabrics today. So a little double click on the insights thing, as you might want to look at this as, can I monitor health over time? One capability. The other one, can I monitor availability? On the availability piece, you see the little logo on the right side says Cisco Insight. We're actually using a capability you will hear in the next 15 minutes from KD. I just listen to, and you will hear what he has to say. We're using this on the back end. So you see we're doing very similar things around availability on the compute side and networking side. And so this is a picture on the assurance side. Again, this product is shipping. We're expanding this. Very, very positive feedback from customers around how can I monitor issues in my fabric around policy, actual state, inconsistency, compliance, all these kind of things, prevent outages, shorten the time. Customers that have it today, they love it. With that, I think I have one slide left. I can't talk about network innovation with talking a little bit of hardware. In the old Cisco, I would have started with this slide. In the new Cisco, I end with this slide. 400 gig. How many of you want 400 gig? At some point? Come on, it's like, can't believe it. We do have 400 gig. And the reason why we call it 400 gig done right is, I have no illusion, most of you don't need 400 gig this year, maybe not even next year. At some point you will, pretty sure, just looking back when we had 10 gig. We will bring out 400 gig product. We are actually in field trials as we speak. Actually, the first one is in Asia Pac. But what we have done is we're extending everything what we have today with ACI capabilities on 100 gig and 10 gig and 25 gig and 40 gig. We're extending all that capability to 400 gig. So nothing changes around the architecture, nothing changes around intent-based, but you can extend this to 400 gig speeds. You will get this from us. So with that, I walked you through why we do what we're doing. I walked you through what we're doing about it and innovation-wise and networking, and so I'm going to invite Kosh Dubdas. Actually, I have to look at him. I just call him KD. Please come up to the stage, and he will tell you what we're doing on the computing and hyperconverged side.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So now you know why I go by KD, because my parents weren't marketeers, and they didn't really name me a name that was easily pronounceable. But my name is Kaustubh Das, call me KD, and I run the computing product management team at Cisco, so everything that's UCS or anything related to compute, hyperconvergence, converged infrastructure, that kind of stuff. And as I and my team look at what's happening in compute, there's just incredible innovation going on. Compute used to be about the CPU. Now it's about GPUs. It's about TPUs. It's about accelerators and FPGAs. Compute has moved out of CPUs. Storage class memory has blurred the lines between what used to be DRAMs and what was flash media or other kinds of media. NVMe shortens the latencies that you have come to expect from that media. And then there's new interfaces coming our way, which make everything much more interconnected. IAL, Gen Z, it's a whole bunch of other things happening. And with that incredible innovation comes incredible complexity. There's just a lot to sieve through. And at Cisco, it's our mission to simplify this complexity, to make that innovation digestible for all of you. So I'm going to talk about 3 ways in which we do this. We do this via blueprints, CVDs, or recipes that are easy to deploy. We do this by leveraging the power of the cloud to control the infrastructure on-prem. And we do this by building new design patterns for on-prem infrastructure, whether that is converged infrastructure or hyperconverged infrastructure. So I'm going to talk about those 3 things, but let me illustrate an example of that complexity. So Intel launches this incredible product called Optane. It's fantastic. It kind of bridges the gap between DRAM-like performance and the capacity and endurance of SSDs. It really kind of creates a new middle ground of storage class memory out there. But to harness that, one needs to tie the operational configurations of Optane to the workload it's managing or it's running. One needs to configure Optane either as persistent or as dynamic. One needs to codify and performance tune the memory, the persistent memory, to the workload that it's going to be addressing. Luckily, with Cisco and Cisco UCS management, we've got a method to codify these things in policy. So UCS management back in 2009 was codifying service profiles, codifying these settings in policy that it could then implement on the hardware. With Innersight, we do this from the cloud. Okay? So a day in our lives consists of chasing multiple initiatives. And a day in your lives will be some combination of the following. You could be modernizing your data center. You could be modernizing the applications in that data center. You could be taking all the data in your data center and leveraging it to drive insights. You could be connecting to a cloud or to multiple clouds. And then you could be driving some next generation use cases. Artificial intelligence, machine learning are obviously ones that come to mind. So that's our lives. And to do all this, what we've done as Cisco is we've built recipes. We built Cisco validated design. My team has a plethora of experts who have years and decades of experience in specific areas, in storage stacks, in application stacks, in big data applications. And we build Cisco validated design that makes all of these initiatives that much more doable, that much more simple. So in the last couple of months, we've released a couple of new CVDs on the flash stack and FlexPod side that couple converged infrastructure with training platforms for artificial intelligence. We re-energized and renewed and re-released a Hitachi converged infrastructure CVD in the last few days. On the data-intensive side, Hadoop 3.0 brings the power of GPUs to what used to be more conventional Hadoop infrastructure. We worked with Hortonworks to release a CVD on that. We've gotten new big data partners on board and secondary storage partners on board, like Cloudian and Cohesity. And then we worked with our with our partners like NVIDIA to create the most powerful, the most industry-resilient artificial intelligence training platform out there, the C480ML. But we didn't stop there. We then worked with Red Hat OpenShift to layer on Kubernetes from them, and then to layer on Kubeflow, on which we can run all the artificial intelligence stacks that data scientists love to use. All of these are readily available recipes that all of you can use at no cost. It's work we make happen so that everything becomes simpler. So that was recipes. But the next thing we did was we took the power of the cloud. We took the power of the cloud and we harnessed it to use that ubiquitous presence of the cloud to manage our infrastructure. So Innersight is SaaS for IT management. Innersight leverages analytics, leverages fingerprints of problems that have happened in the past to proactively tell us about problems that may happen in the future. Innersight is continuous innovation. The software is never out of date. In the last 3 months, we probably released 10 new releases of this software. So it's always fresh, always happening. And as a product guy, I like to actually look at stuff. So let me show you. So this is what happens when you log into Innersight. You log in, and you get a view of your infrastructure. You get a view of the number of servers on, the number of fabric interconnects, number of Hyperflex clusters. You get a sense of the capacity, the health, and so forth. But you can click in to different areas, and you can see, hey, is my hardware all compatible with each other? Now, that used to be a bone-breaking drudgery of an effort to actually sieve through and see, hey, did that card that I just put into the PCIe slot work with the BIOS setting that I've got on my server? Well, that's automated now. Let the machine do the drudgery. We get warned about alarms, things that may go wrong in our system, proactively. We may get warned about security breaches that have happened. Last year was an interesting year for security problems, and having the ability to be proactively told about a problem that may happen is a remarkable thing. But having the ability to then fix that problem from anywhere to a data center that may be anywhere, connected through the cloud, connected via your mobile device potentially, is fantastic. So now we can be told, hey, there's a security vulnerability. Here's what's affected. Here's what you need to do. Upgrade my firmware. Click yes. It's done. That's the power of the cloud to simplify what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. But one of the things that I like most about Innersight so far is this feature called Connected TAC. And this is an interesting one that leverages the insights in the cloud to detect an issue in advance. It automatically logs the case with TAC. The diagnostic data is uploaded automatically. Fingerprints are matched. And often, the problem is resolved before one comes back and realizes there's been a problem. So CSE, the customer service contacts us, and actionable information is given to you. Potentially, drives could be shipped to you, and the work's done. Okay. So the other piece of this was sometimes you need just a better design pattern for a better private cloud. And we realized in 2016 that we could couple software-defined compute from UCS, a custom-designed data platform from Hyperflex, and then couple that with Innersight and Cloud Center to create a better HCI system, and we called it Hyperflex. Hyperflex is the highest performing hyperconverged system that connects to multiple clouds. It can be managed from the cloud. It can be managed from anywhere and connect to data boxes anywhere. And recently, we were named the Magic Quadrant leader by all the usual Gartners and Forresters and other analysts. And we're continuing to drive this forward. We just released Hyperflex Edge, which, again, Innersight managed, has got some nifty new innovations for data resiliency. We increased the scale. We increased the performance. We introduced Optane support. We introduced a data acceleration engine. So our journey on Hyperflex continues to gain momentum. So at this point, I'd like to invite on stage Phil Dawson, who's one of our customers. Phil leads AU Cloud, which is the sovereign secure IaaS provider for the Australian government. So Phil, please join me on stage.
Okay, Dee. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Right.
So Phil, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know I described a little bit, but tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm a managing director of a business called AU Cloud. I was previously the co-founding CEO of a business called UK Cloud. You can kind of see where the name came. And the UK Cloud was the fastest growing technology business in the UK from 2012 through to 2016. And it was an IaaS business that was exclusively focused on government. And I spent the last 3 years in Australia getting to understand the market, getting to build relationships, and actually starting to understand. And over the last 18 months, we've launched and built AU Cloud.
Cool, cool. So what stage of implementation is AU Cloud, and could you give a little bit more insight on that?
Yeah, so we're a kind of business that's been working through, how we adapt what we do to the Australian market. It would have been pretty foolish to just come in and say everything's the same. It's not, it's similar. We've also spent a lot of time with the Australian Cybersecurity Centre and understanding the palatability of the technology and the design to them. And we've also spent a lot of time improving on the model. So actually AU Cloud is much better than UK Cloud. So we opened the shop door, so to speak, the end of last year, and we've now got sort of 40 partners who are actively working with us.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So any kind of aha or wow moments that you can share with us in your experience working with Cisco as you've tried to set up this business?
Yeah, kind of. I suppose the Cisco relationship goes a long way back to the UK, and it came back through San Jose, and we've kind of, I suppose, over time realized that actually it's all really about automation, orchestration, and monitoring. So we spent a lot of time in that 3 years building out our orchestration piece so that customers can write to our cloud, and it's API-centric and microservice-based and all that good stuff that I now see that Cisco are doing themselves for Platform 3.
Yeah.
But actually how we manage that and build that in the technical team, it's all about how we automate it. So DevOps, DevSecOps, and ensuring that whatever we're trying to do and we're managing a multi-tenancy environment, we can do it as efficiently and effectively and securely as possible with as few people as possible.
So what's next?
Well, what's next is really building on some of the technology. So we're unusual that we're wall-to-wall Cisco. So we're actually not only network, which you'd probably expect, and compute, but also storage as well. So we're looking to build that out and scale it out. We're obviously looking initially building out in Canberra, where federal government's based. They spend a comfortable 9 billion Aussie dollars or so each year. And it's an important proof point for us, but also extend that out to federal government and to critical national industries as well.
Well, thank you very much, Phil. Yeah. So, Thomas talked about the innovation. I talked a little bit about the products we bring to the market. But it's really a relationship with customers and partners like AU Cloud and all of you all that make the magic happen. So thank you all for listening. Thank you. Enjoy the show.